yesterday we have end with the property binding, right? We created our own component, and to that component we have the property, right? Like this. So you are injecting property to the component, something like this over here. So you created app IP, which is nothing but the input, and to that you have add is a custom property. You created a custom property and you assign some value. Similarly, you created another EMP, and to that EMP you are passing JavaScript object. That's also fine. Now I want to deal with the events which are going to be generated by the components, right? Okay, so first and foremost thing, let me have one row. Let me write one row over here, and here I can say event binding, right? Event binding. And here let me remove all these things. I wouldn't be needing that thing. And input type I would be having button, right? And value would be okay. So I would be having one page division. Into that page division I would be writing input type as button and the OK. Now whenever I am going to click on this button, right, what I am saying, whenever I am clicking on the button, right, whenever I am going to clicking on the button, I would be changing this value. What is that? Border color, right? Can you see presently border color is solid red, right? By default border color is solid red. If I click on the button, I would be calling this function. Here I can say change border, right? Change border. And here I can say this dot border is equals to another 1px solid blue, right? I would be having 1px solid blue. Here I can say blue. This dot border is nothing but what? 1px solid blue. And here you have assigned that border value, means it is expected that this page division's border should be getting changed on the click of this button. Well, so here we have seen rect brackets are going to be used to assign value. So to the component is property binding. Assigning to the component, listening from the component is the event binding. So here is your one of the input tag, and I am going to get bind to one event which is nothing but the click event provided to you by the Angular team. And on the click I am going to call the function. Here you can say change border. This function I am going to call change the border over here, right? I would be calling simple function change border. Now let me open it into the terminal, and here I can say npm start. Let me start the server. So you would be getting something over here. Let me open the Chrome, right? So is that started? So it's serving. So see, what you did is that in the parent component, which is nothing but the data binding component that we have written yesterday, in that border is already there. Yesterday we have used border somewhere, right? We have used border somewhere, and you have written simple code called as change the border, right? And this function you are calling on the click of the button, right? On the click of the button, here you can say localhost 4200. Can you see this border is red? If I click on the OK button, that will convert it to the blue. Means I have heard the event and accordingly updated my UI. So you just changed, what you can say, this value on the click of this. Event binding, you are going to call it as what? Event binding, right? Now you can do many things, right? Absolutely many things. Now what I'm going to do is that see, one more page division I would be writing, and their input, right, let me have input type is equals to text, right, type is equals to text over here, right, and I'm going to apply one style. See, style dot width, I'm going to operate on the width, I'm going to change the width. So here default width I can say one value 120 pixels would be the by default width, right, by default width would be this thing. Or can I create one variable over here? You can say dynamic width of type string, dynamic width, right, of type string. Now what I want to do is that if mouse is going to be enter into this text box, width should be increased. If mouse is going to be leave, width should be what? Decreased. So instead of this hard coded value, I can say dyna wd, which is this, and I can assign some default value over here. Okay, see here, dynamic width we have. You can assign some data directly over here, and I can say 200 pixels, right? So by default value would be 200 pixels over here, right? So you don't need to write that quotes or that string value over here, right? Because this would be considered as variable because of this. This would be considered as what? This would be considered as variable because you have written the handlebars over here, rect brackets, right? Now functions, mouse enter, or say mouse use enter, these are some different than regular JS, right? These are some different than the regular JS. Mouse enter. So here either I can call the function, right, either I can call the function, or directly over here I can change the value of this, and I can say something like this, say 300 pixels. If mouse is going to be entered, make it 300 pixels. If mouse is going to be leave from this, right, mouse leave from this, again dynamic width would be what? 200 pixels, normal thing. Either you can call function over here, likewise this change border, right, either you can call function over here, likewise the change border, or you can just make the assignment something like this. And see, can you see this thing? Entered and exited, entered and exited. Even this is working. So here you are listening for the event by means of the round brackets. Round brackets are helping you to listen for the events, right? So here you are listening for the mouse enter, you are changing the width. Here you are listening for mouse leave, again you are changing value of the width. Fine. So if there is a one line, why you are writing function? If you have multiple lines of code that you cannot write over here, then go with the function. If it is an inline, you can do something like this, and that's absolutely fine, right? That's absolutely fine. Now this is one thing about the event binding. Remember that event listening is from the component, property binding is to the component, assigning the values to the component. See, here you have assigned some value to the component. This is a built-in property, style.width, and this is listening from the component. Here are clear distinguish. If you can see this, one is written in the handlebars, one is written into the round brackets, right? One is written into the handlebars and one is written into the round brackets. So this is the property binding, and this is what you can say event binding. Property binding and the event binding are the two things are very important in this scenario, right? Now from this, what I want to do, I want to create my own component, and that component is going to emit some events. That my component is going to emit some events. Let me create the component in the next tutorial. I hope you got this idea. Let me save it.